Hello everyone, it's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. Those of you guys who have been following this channel for a long time know that I'm a big fan of Lucid Motors and Peter Rawlinson. I believe that Lucid Motors has the right idea. I believe their engineering is awesome, and I think their cars are great. They are pricey, but I think their marketing is bad, and maybe their manufacturing isn't very efficient. I mean, they are losing money hand over fist. They're burning through cash like crazy. Now, the good thing for them is that the Saudi Arabia Sovereign Investment Fund is basically floating them, and that sovereign investment fund is huge, so they can afford to float them for quite a while before they give up on them. And I think Saudi Arabia is pretty invested. They're pretty all in on Lucid. Lucid has already started building a factory in Saudi Arabia, so I think Lucid is protected from running out of money for the foreseeable future. Anyways, Peter Rawlinson, like he has been always all in on the concept of efficiency. He wants to build the most efficient car possible, but he's doing it with like normal car packaging. So it's kind of like Aptera, but like scaled back. Aptera is going all in, and they don't care if the car looks weird and bizarre. They're just gonna go purely for efficiency. Um, Lucid wants the cars to look like cars and feel familiar, but they're trying everything they can to eke out as much efficiency as they can out of it because they see the advantages of that. And there was this recent Everything Electric show interview with Imogen where Peter Rawlinson talks about efficiency. I wanted to kind of like do a couple of segments out of there with you guys.
I want to talk about miles per kilowatt hour because we were having an interesting conversation before the camera started.
Yeah.
Now, to set the scene for those listening, the Lucid Air Pure, it has a miles per kilowatt hour range of value of 4.75 miles per kilowatt hour. The 25 model year version will be 5 miles per kilowatt hour. But you actually...
Okay, so stop there for a second. The Lucid Air has an efficiency of 5 miles per kilowatt hour. So that's in comparison to Aptera's projection. Aptera hasn't proven it with a physical prototype yet, but Aptera is saying that they have a 10. They're targeting a 10 mile per kilowatt hour. So that's twice the efficiency of the Lucid Air Pure. But of course, it's a much smaller vehicle. And the average, let's him talk about the average.
Actually had something to do with how we talk about efficiency. Can you take us on the story there?
Yes, well, traditionally, efficiency wasn't measured in efficiency. It was measured in the opposite, the inverse of efficiency, which is consumption. So engineers talked about watt hours consumed per mile. And you're an engineer as well, Imogen, by profession, so you'll understand it. But I think it's really important that we demystify such nuances for the intelligent layperson. I think this is hugely important, and I feel it's almost a responsibility of mine. And I felt that people understand miles per gallon. It's so digestible, but watt hours per mile seems such a weird concept and a construct. It's very difficult to get your head around it. So I started talking about miles per kilowatt hour instead, because I felt that was part of the demystification of EVs. And fascinatingly, it's almost a 10-to-1 ratio. You get an average petrol car, it does about 30 miles to the gallon. An average electric car will do about 3 miles per kilowatt hour. A really bad petrol car will do about 15 miles to the gallon. And a really bad EV will do about 1.5 miles per kilowatt hour. So it puts in context our Pure getting 5.0. It's just like having a genuine 50 miles to the gallon petrol car.
Okay, so by that metric, Aptera at 10 miles per kilowatt hour would be equivalent to about 100 mile per gallon petrol car.
And I think this is really important that people can digest this weird and wacky world of EVs. And that will lead to less suspicion, less concern, and a wider adoption, I think.
Do you know, I do think that...
Okay, I want to stop right there because we used to talk about watt hours per mile. So Aptera was saying that they would do 100 watt hours per mile. and he wants to flip it and say, we're used to talking about miles per gallon, so he wanted to talk about miles per kilowatt hour. So instead of watt hours per mile, which would be like gallons per mile, he wants to talk about miles per gallon, which I think most people understand intuitively. What I don't like about that is I believe that we're used to miles per gallon, but gallons, gallons per like 100 miles is actually it's a better measure of efficiency of a car. Because here, I'll give you an example. If you have a car that gets 15 miles per gallon, and then you jump up to a car that gets 30 miles per gallon, that is a big difference. But if you go from 30 miles per gallon to 45 miles per gallon, that's not as big a jump in efficiency, even though it's still 15 miles per gallon more. And so and then going from 45 to 60 miles per gallon is definitely not as big as going from 15 to 30 miles per gallon. So I kind of like how he's thinking about it. It is easier for people to digest, but I kind of wish we would go to watt hours per mile instead, and people would get used to the idea of like gallons per 100 mile or something. But maybe that's too much to ask for.
That's so fascinating because, and we were talking before, that so often people are obsessed with range. And in order to get increasing amounts of range, if you don't prioritize efficiency, that means just more and more batteries, which in itself is not a very efficient thing to do. And putting miles per kilowatt hour front and center really pushes and forces the industry to have it something that you wear as a badge of honor, I suppose.
I don't think anyone was really talking about this or even thinking about it until we really promoted this. If you wind back to 2016 when I built Lucid up, it was a generally held belief that you couldn't improve the efficiency of an electric motor. It's so much more efficient than a gasoline counterpart, a petrol counterpart, and that's true. But there was this wide held belief that range was a function of just how many batteries you stuffed in. And I even see today reviews of cars, they say, well, the range is lousy, they should have found more room for batteries. No, they should have had a high-tech solution which would have gone further with the batteries they've got. And everything gets better if you can go further with less batteries. But it's not just the cost of the batteries, it's the damn weight. It's shocking, the weight of a battery pack, and then the package space that those batteries take up. One of the reasons we've got such a spacious car on the inside, and it's really deceptive. This car is smaller than its counterparts on the outside, much more spacious on the inside, with exceptional range, because we've got fewer batteries, and the batteries we've positioned and sculpted them around the occupants. This is critical.
I want to come on to the motor side of things, because this is something that I watched one of your tech talks around how you've created this single drive unit and actually this whole systems level engineering approach to think, well, how do we do things like consider cooling at source rather than just creating a thing and then having to bolt on a cooling system on top of it. But I wonder, how did it take much to transition the whole organization around that way of thinking? Or were people largely there to create this super efficient?
No. Okay, so I wanted to switch over to, so Lucid had their tech and manufacturing day also about 2 weeks ago, and where they talk about the same thing. So, Peter Rawlinson sees the advantage of having an efficient car. You need less batteries to have the same range. Less batteries makes it lighter, which makes it handle better, which makes it cheaper, which also gives it more range because it's less heavy. And so this is a graph that they showed about the current efficiency in miles per kilowatt hour of the various vehicles. And so you see here the Lucid Air is the highest at 5. And then the others are also Lucid Airs. And then you see a Tesla Model S, a Genesis, a BMW i4, BMW i5. And then as you go down, you see like here, Porsche Taycan. Now, this doesn't even have, just abominations like the GM Hummer EV, which I think is like down here in the 1 mile per kilowatt or like a little bit above that range. So way down here. Now, Aptera would be like here. It'd be like way off the charts. It'd be at 10 miles per kilowatt hour. And so he's going to talk about that.
And that is the cost per mile of
Okay, and then this is talking about
EPA efficiency, and we've done it as MPGE rather than miles per kilowatt hour because you can't definitively, you can believe MPGE because it's from a trusted source. If we actually rely on individual manufacturers' kilowatt hour claims of pack sizes, then that becomes a bit more tenuous. So we've used this as a reference datum. You can see the trajectory that we're taking. And the others have still quite a challenge to catch up. And I do want to say that.
So they're saying that they have a 7-year advantage on, obviously, this competitor A is Tesla. This is what they're comparing themselves to. So you see Tesla, they're saying that at their current, so you see Tesla's efficiency is increasing over time. Lucid's efficiency is increasing over time. And they're saying to get to where Lucid is now, Tesla would have to wait until 2032. And in the previous talk, they talk about how their motor is different and how they've made that very efficient. And so Aptera is going with an off-the-shelf EMR3 unit from Vitesco, which, as Peter Rawlinson said, all electric motors are very efficient. But if you want to eke out more efficiency, you can change the inverter. You can change the motor. So if I believe you had a Lucid motor and a Lucid inverter in an Aptera. Currently, Lucid is not licensing their technology or selling their motors, but if they did, Aptera would be even more efficient because Aptera's main efficiencies come from its shape, so the aerodynamics, and from its weight savings. But the drivetrain efficiency itself now is pretty average. It's a very standard part that's has been used in hundreds of thousands of vehicles, but it's like average efficiency for an electric drivetrain, which admittedly is very good, but it's not anything special. At first Aptera was going with these hub motors, which were thought to be super efficient, but we know that there were some problems with developing the inverters to go with it, and that's why they moved to an off-the-shelf product. But Lucid I really respect how their CEO is prioritizing efficiency, and I wish them lots of success. And I think it would be good if they could license their technology, if Aptera switched over at some point. But perhaps also by that time, maybe the hub motors will be more efficient and ready to go. So there are more efficiency gains to be gotten from Aptera. So I think this first iteration of Aptera is going to be very efficient due to its size, shape, aerodynamics, weight, that kind of thing. But we're not seeing its full efficiency capability. We're not seeing its full potential with the current drivetrain that we have going, which I think will be quite good, but just not as good as the state of the art. Which it appears that the state of the art for standard inboard motors is the Lucid drivetrain. All right, tell me what you guys think about Lucid motors. I'm pretty excited about the Gravity myself. It's a little bit out of my price range, but I think that's going to be a very important vehicle for them. So I'm kind of keeping my eyes out on that. So let me know what you guys think about Lucid, about their efficiency, whether you think it's a good synergy with Aptera. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.